So, 5 records that I can't live without. I have seen these lists popping up on social media. I think it's Spin Magazine, who has been doing these of late. I saw one with Richard Thompson that I thought was great. And it definitely, as you've all seen on here, many, many lists coming from me. Favorite records of the decade, all time, favorite ambient. I don't know. I love lists. But this one really made me think about if I could only really choose 5 records to listen to for the rest of my life, what would they be? This feels different than what are my top 10 or 20. I think I did top 50 favorite records of all time. I can only take 5. I don't even really know how that differs, but it does in my head. So these are the 5 that I came up with. As I always say, I didn't spend a lot of time. I just sort of thought, what are the ones that, if I had just a few minutes to take with me, what would they be? So let's give this a shot. First one is Abbey Road. And this one hit me as a must. I was driving up to Oakland recently, and I played this front to back. And there were a few times where I was just like, I remember I was like, do I have to pull over? Like, I was just so, there's the You Never Give Me Your Money, Sun King, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. That sequencing is just, I remember on that drive thinking, this is the best sequencing in the history of music, or at least that I've heard. I was just floored. And like Come Together, I don't even really like that song that much. I sometimes skip that, although lately I've been listening to it. But I Want You, She's So Heavy, Here Comes the Sun. This, just in terms of like, as good as a record gets, I would need this in my top 5. Number 2, this was also pretty easy. Nick Drake's 5 Leaves Left. I could pick any Nick Drake record, but I think if I could only have one on that deserted island, it would be this one. Time Has Told Me, Riverman, Day Is Done, Way Too Blue, Saturday Sun, Thoughts of Mary Jane. Just an absolutely gorgeous record and very meditative. And I think I've shared that I listened to, and I sort of referenced it a few minutes ago, I listened to a lot of ambient music, Brian Eno, and I've talked a bit about, where is it? The Disintegration Loops by William Basinski. I bought that box set during COVID. It was one of the more expensive box sets I ever bought, but I used to listen to that when I was going through anxiety or just tough times where I needed to settle down. I would listen to the Disintegration Loops. Just a beautiful, beautiful record, despite. I know it is, it was inspired, or it was put together, I don't know why I can't get this out verbally, right after 9/11. I think Basinski was living in Brooklyn, and I don't know if you've heard the story, but he had these tapes, and they were disintegrating. And he started to play them right after 9/11, and just like recorded while they were disintegrating, I think, and he made a record out of it, and it's remarkable. I don't know. I haven't listened to it in a few years. Or since right after COVID, when I got it, I listened to it a ton, but haven't gone back to it all that much. But you're gonna need some music like that if you're solo, right? Settle down your mind and feel a little spirituality. Nick Drake is that, and I could have chosen any Nick Drake record. He has 3 records. They're all perfect. Just like Big Star, an artist who never got his or their due, who is now getting it sort of well past, Nick Drake passed away and was 78. Chris Bell was somewhere right around there. Alex Chilton from Big Star passed away in 2010. Andy Hummel, I think it was a few years after, and Jody Stevens is thankfully still with us. I actually saw Jody Stevens when I was in Chicago last week. He walked right by me. I said, "Hey, thanks, Jody," who went to a big star show at Fitzgerald's that was just absolutely tremendous. So Nick Drake, he gets the spot at number 2. And these are not in order, by the way. Bob Dylan, Bring It All Back Home. This has never been my favorite Bob Dylan record until recently. I don't know why. It's very rambunctious. It's sort of just all over the place. I would always say Blood on the Tracks, Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, or Highway 61 is my favorite Dylan record. One of those 3, and now I feel like it's Bringing It All Back Home. She Belongs to Me, Maggie's Farm, Mr. Tambourine Man, the greatest 2-song closing I think in the history of any record. It's All Right Ma, I'm Only Bleeding, and It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I think for the rest of my life, if there's an artist that I will listen to the most, unless there's an artist that hasn't come upon us yet or I haven't discovered yet, it's probably going to be Bob Dylan. I'm still on Last FM. I think I may be the only person still on Last FM. And it still tracks my digital listening across Spotify and Apple Music. And in terms of artists, it's Wilco by far. I think I've had like 9,900 song listens to Wilco. If you're not familiar with Last FM, it basically just keeps track of all your listening, so it can tell you like who you listened to the most in the past week, month, year, all time. I think mine is Wilco's number 1 at like 9,900, Springsteen's 2 at almost 9,000, and then it drops. So I think it's Josh Ritter, maybe 5,500, Dylan somewhere in the 5,000s, Neil Young, and Dylan, whatever, I just said that, 4,000, 5,000, whenever you get me on Last FM, it's just, I can't remember everything. But this Dylan record, Bringing It All Back Home, and this top 5, tomorrow it'll be a completely different top 5 depending on my mood. 2 left, obviously. This was the last one I picked. I had 4 like definitive and then landed on Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco, a record I have shared whenever I get to New York City, because I was listening to this record. I don't know why all these 9/11 themes, but I was listening. This record was released on their website, and people were trading it prior to 9/11, despite the fact that it didn't come out until April of 2002. I had it, and I hear this record, and I just hear New York during that period. And for some reason, whenever I go to New York, and I don't go to New York nearly as often as I used to, probably go twice a year now, 2 or 3 times a year, I have to play this when I walk the streets of Manhattan or Brooklyn, and I play this record, and it sounds completely different than anywhere else. And my favorite Wilco record has probably been Being There, but this is the one, I think it might be the best record since 2000. What else is up there? Jason Isbell's Southeastern is up there. I saw Isbell this past Saturday night. Tremendous show out here in the Bay Area. But this Wilco record, I think it's an all-time great. And it's got its experimentation, great, like sort of esoteric lyrics. Like you can it's one of those records where you make lyrics, they are what you make of them, and I love that about this record. And I love sort of like the minimalism of the photography, minimalism here. It's just, what a record. And lastly, this is the first one I picked, and it's never been in my top 10 favorite records. I don't even think it made my top 50. But I listened to it 3 times in a row last weekend. Was it last weekend? Excuse me, this past weekend. The previous weekend I was in Chicago for my brother's memorial concert, which I plan on maybe doing a video on. It was a wonderful time. Saw so many people. The bands were incredible. It was sold out. Beautiful, beautiful event at Carol's Pub in Chicago. I can't thank them enough. I can't thank the 4 acts that performed. Slobberbone was the headliner. Frog Holler was right before Slobberbone. Frog Holler had incredible cover songs. They covered Spirit in the Night, Springsteen, Still Be Around by Uncle Tupelo. I think it's called Early in the Morning by the Bottle Rockets. And then before them, Chip Robinson, who opened with, is it Tower of Song, the Leonard Cohen song. Chip Robinson's just it was so great to hang out and chat with him. And then Tyne, I believe it's pronounced Tyne Darling, who is, I believe, from Milwaukee, was a friend of Lane's. He opened, and we stayed out till 4:30 in the morning. Just an incredible night. Met up with a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in many, many years. It was just a great, great weekend. So there's that update. And now, number 5, Neil Young's Tonight's the Night. I remember an interview with Jay Bennett, who I talk about all the time. Jay Bennett, formerly of Wilco. Jay Bennett passed away in 2009. Played a huge role in the early Wilco sound, sort of post-AM. So being there, Summer Teeth, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, the Mermaid Avenue records. I don't know if he played a role in what would eventually be A Ghost is Born, but hugely important in the early sort of sound evolution of the band Wilco. I read an interview with him where he said that Tonight's the Night was his favorite record of all time. And I remember, I think I went out and bought it on vinyl after he said that. And I listened to it the other night, as I mentioned, 3 times in a row, and was just like, there's never been an album like this. It's like, it sounds like you're in a bar and you're hearing like the best bar band ever. Tonight's the Night, Speaking Out, just Come On Baby, Let's Go Downtown. I remember I saw Sunvolt at the Paradise in Boston when I was in college. This is in 95. And Gillian Welch opened, and Gillian Welch came out with Sunvolt during the encore and covered Come On Baby, Let's Go Downtown. One of the greatest things I've ever seen live. Gillian Welch got a record coming out. First proper record since 2011, I think, of new material. Can't wait for that. Mellow My Mind, Tired Eyes, Tonight's the Night, Albuquerque. This, I don't know, it's just a party, it's raw, I don't know, just what an album. Those are my 5. I just quickly wanted to thank everyone for all the kind notes following my first mental health dedicated YouTube video. It wasn't easy to do. Somebody commented that I had a lot of ahs and ums, and I did when I rewatched it. And I remember I thought about doing it again, and I still do ahs and ums. I think a lot of us, I pay attention to that a little bit more now. I was watching newscasters last night with all the news in the last few days, especially here in the US, and I see that even they do it, right? It's a hard thing to break. I've worked on it for many years, but I think the nerves of that video and the fact that I was really speaking about something that was incredibly personal maybe brings on sort of those pauses. So somebody commented on that, and I deleted the comment. I think it's the first comment I've ever deleted, but I just wasn't in the mood to hear it. And this person was right, whomever they were. So it was good feedback, and I appreciate it. Right? It's a hard thing to shake. See, it's all I'm gonna think about. And it's probably all you're ever gonna hear when you watch me do these videos. Neil Young's Tonight's the Night to close it out. And again, thank you for all the feedback on my mental health video. I do plan on doing subsequent ones. The next one I plan on doing is from when I was young, how it started and what it felt like early. So I'm hoping to do that in the coming weeks, if not days. So keep talking about music, but I will also be talking about mental health and just stuff that happens in my life. Appreciate you all watching. Again, thanks for all the comments. Thanks for people who shared their own stories. It was incredibly moving, and I'm glad we're having a conversation about it. So we will talk soon, and thanks for stopping by.